Hello and welcome to yet another YouTube video here on this channel. I'm actually out traveling right now, but I am going to make a video anyway because there is no stopping my dreams and no stopping the grind. So if the lighting is a little bit worse than usual, it is probably because my only light source is the television and the light here in the hotel room isn't too good. But anyways, we are going to talk about an idea I came across a couple of months ago. But the idea is quite old. It is dated back to people like John Locke and Aristoteles. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but in Norwegian it is correct. Anyways, the idea is called a commonplace book, and I'm using my bullet journal and I have a Fisher Space Pen. I have a couple of other notebooks as well, but basically what the idea is that you write things down inside of a notebook in order to remember and look back on them later. There are several things you can write down in a commonplace book. You can write down notes from books, podcasts, and television series. You can write down your own thoughts and things you've learned. And the way I do it is that I write down a lot of the things I learn in my days, in my life, because life throws us a lot of lessons, and it is always hard to remember all of those lessons. We tend to do the same mistakes over and over again, and I am one of those. So I write down my life lessons, my ideas. Even this whole YouTube script was written down in this book. So the commonplace book is actually quite easy to start with. All you need is a notebook and a pen. And I have a few different recommendations. The first one is that you should buy yourself a good notebook. So this is the LT Bullet Journal. This is really good quality. It is a little bit more expensive than your regular notebook, but it is definitely worth it because you will bring your commonplace book everywhere. So I have this book with me everywhere, and I do my daily tasks inside of this as well. So I have combined my commonplace book with my bullet journal, and the reason why I can do that is because this book and many other books, notebooks as well, they have something called the index. They come with index pages as well as numbered pages, so you can easily write down your index and find the things you're looking for later. So that's why I use a notebook like this. I have several different ones. So I have two of this bullet journal book, and I have a couple more. Comment down below if you want to see my collection, and I will do a video on that later. But it is basically the second brain idea before the second brain existed, before digital tools existed. And it has stood the test of time. People did it back in the 1600s, and people are still doing it right now. So I like an idea that have stood the test of time because that means that it is probably a really good idea. The second tip I'm going to share with you is to buy a book with the index and numbered pages. You'll write a lot in this book, and to easily be able to find the things you've written down, an index is a necessity. I would say it is a necessity to be able to find the things you are looking for. So I would buy a book with an index. You can of course create your own, but that takes a lot of work numbering all of the pages. So I would recommend just buying one that already has numbered pages and an index. Especially the numbered pages is the most important thing. The last tip I'm going to share with you in order to keep a commonplace book is to just learn to write things down. And some would say that you can do this digitally, and you probably can. You can do this in a notes app. I use both a notes app as well as my commonplace book, but you can do this digitally as well. The benefit of doing this with a note app is that it is easily searchable. Meanwhile, if you use a physical book, it is much easier to remember things you have written down with your hand with a pen on paper. It is much easier to remember it, and there are several different studies showing that. And another thing is that it is easier, or you distill it a lot better when you write by hand instead of taking notes on the computer. Sometimes when I take digital notes, I feel like my hands work faster than my brain, so my thought isn't finished when I write it down. So I would actually recommend trying out a commonplace book, because it is so much easier, and I take so much better notes personally, and I combine this with 2 different note-taking apps. So I use Tooz as well as Heptabase. So I combine everything, but in order to keep a good commonplace book, you need to decide to write things down, and you can have different books for different things. So I could personally have one for work, I could have one for books, I could have one for YouTube videos, but I have chosen to have everything inside of one. It is so many ways to do this. The second tip is to buy a quality notebook. And the last tip is to just learn to write things down, get into the habit. And in that way, you can easily start making your own commonplace book. And just to get rid of one myth, I have terrible handwriting. You don't need good handwriting to start a commonplace book. So buy your first notebook and start taking notes. If you have any questions, please do leave them down below, and I can do a more in-depth video and show you more of my commonplace book. Thank you for watching, and as always, if you haven't done so, please do subscribe, like the video, and I hope to see you again quite soon.